Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from Beyond. I'm Zeckthar.
And I'm Yuksen.
And we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this week we will be looking to everyone's favorite greenskins, the Orks.
Indeed, Zeckthar, the Orks, who love nothing more than a good scrap and some good old-fashioned crumbin'. Join us this month as we discuss the biology of the orkoid species, their effect on the other species, some funny stories, and of course, notable characters.
Of course, Yuksen. But to our dear listeners, if you like our stuff, please subscribe, follow, like, and comment. And if you wish to help Bob, you can click the support podcast button on any of our descriptions on Spotify.
Quite right, Zeckthar. If you like what we do, don't hesitate to plug in on Spotify. We wish to keep this free and without ads, so if you find folks truly enjoy this, you can help. If you only donate to Bob on our Spotify channel for 99 cents a month, we can continue to do our stuff without those hated ads. Now, mind you, if you wish to do more, feel free. But this is all we ask, just 99 cents. Well, Zeckthar, let's get into it, shall we?
Well, first off, because this is our last week doing the Orks, we have questions and answers segment. So, Yuksen, what is our first question?
First question comes from Damian Rusko. And the question is there any documentation on Corvus's reaction to breaking up the legions? He was still working really hard on his ill-fated efforts to find a way to make/create new gene seed at the time, right?
Okay, so let's start with the second part of that question, because it actually comes first. So the whole thing with the gene seeds, for those that you don't know, okay, we got to go a little bit farther back. We got to go to Estevan 5, right?
Istvan.
Whatever. Anyways, the Raven Guard were one of the 3 units, anyways, that got completely and utterly almost wiped out. Now, when he got back, anyways, from Estevan 5, he actually went to Terra, and he personally talked to the Emperor, and he's just like, I need help anyways creating more Space Marines because we pretty much got wiped out. So the Emperor's like, fine, you can go down to my lab and tinker with stuff. To put it very generically. So he went and he got the original gene seed, and he came back and he tested it out with 500 Astartes, or 500 people first, and they turned out like even better than the original Astartes. So he's like, sweet, we can just start mass producing these guys. But of all people, the Alpha Legion showed up and ruined his plans completely by putting this like toxin into the gene seed genetics thing, which was entitled with Demon Warp Energy. So then the next group that came about it anyways, they all were like mutated. Now, this is all taking place anyways during the time of the Horus Heresy. So he ends up Korax ends up getting control of everything. He ends up I believe he ends up actually destroying the original Primarch gene seed thing. And then instead of trying to actually fix it, he destroys it so that they just kind of go back to the good old-fashioned way of making Space Marines. And then he ends up killing pretty much all of these mutants. So that kind of takes place when he gets to that point where he's killing off all these mutants. That's about the time the Horus Heresy has ended. And, like right after that, we've got the second founding, right, Yuksen?
Right.
So as you know, anyways, Rabute Gilman is like, okay, so we just got to make sure that instead of having legions, we have chapters, and there's only 1,000 people in them. And I mean, the problem at this point is that, I mean, he knew anyways that Gilman's vision was true and necessary. But Korax grudgingly did split up his remaining forces into some new second founding chapters. But by that point, anyways, the problem was that there were so few of them that they really weren't very combat operative. So it just took more and more years anyways after that. So he just wasn't really happy about it. He understood why they were being split up into chapters, but he didn't really disagree with it. Like, who are the 3 guys? Lehman Russ, Rogel Dorn, and Vulcan. So
with Vulcan is more of a, we don't have the people for it.
Well, it wasn't, yeah, which is true. I mean, but at the same time, it was also kind of a concept of he still didn't even like the idea. So it wasn't even, so it was also, like I said, it was also along the lines of, yeah, we don't have enough people, but it was also because he didn't like the idea. He didn't think it was a good idea. But he still went along with it eventually. I mean, they all three did. Well, okay, Lehman Russ didn't, but I mean, he kind of did.
He tried once.
Yeah. Tried's a
It's
relative term,
just like,
too.
that didn't work out so well.
Yeah. But, yeah, so what happens to Korax after that, just to give you a little bit of a brief thing anyways, after that anyways, he was so distraught about not being able to rebuild his legion the way he kind of wanted to. He kind of locked himself in his room, and then he disappeared. He disappeared actually into the Eye of Terra. And the next time we see him anyways, he's actually hunting down Lorgar to finish what he started on Esteban 5. Now without Conrad in the way anyways to keep him from killing Lorgar. It seems like, though, a large wooden door will do the same thing. But that's a conversation for another time. Thank you for the question. Do we have any more? Let me
We have one from Jason Sklenar.
I think that's right.
Question is, one of my favorite questions to hear discussed is, assuming he was 100% aware of the last 10,000-ish years, what would be the things Big Papa E would do and say if he got off his lighthouse easy chair?
It's a funny way of anyways saying the Golden Throne, his lighthouse chair.
Yeah.
Just sitting up there, making sure that ships don't run into the warp. Just hitting that button. Protecting the old empire from his rocking chair. Quite frankly, anyways, and also, by the way, first off, thank you, Jason, anyways, for this kind of interesting discussion. You gave us a few points, like, for instance, what do you think about his two sons that are alive, that are still around, that we know of? The state of the Space Marines, like the second founding and whatnot, and the Inquisition, which I think are all really interesting questions. Quite frankly, I don't know about you, Yuksen, but I think he probably could maneuver through most of that. I think the one thing, anyways, he'd be truly pissed off about, though, is the ecclesiarchy. I mean, that would have to go. I think he would be really pissed off about that. Wasn't it? I mean, that's kind of what got the whole Horus heresy started, wasn't it? Lorgar started pronouncing the Emperor as a god, and he sent Rabute Gilman there anyways to pretty much like kill everybody and destroy the whole city, and then had the word bearers watch it. It's like, this is what I think of you thinking of me as a god. Burn it all.
Which is a very godlike thing to do.
Ironically, yes. Fire and brimstone is kind of part of that whole thing. But yeah. Good point. Well,
I'm not a god. I'm just going to use godlike powers.
As you know, anyways, we kind of both agree anyways on the ecclesiarchy anyways being a problem for the emperor. But you're more of the guy that kind of runs anyways with the Inquisition. What do you think he would think of the Inquisition?
Well, part of it I think you'd disagree with. And that'd probably be the Hereticus branch, because it's mainly focused on basically people not going with what
the ecclesiarchy says.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so the three branches anyways, there's Xenos, which is obviously alien. Then there's Hereticus, which is what you're talking about. And the third one's Demon Hunters, right?
The third one is the Malleus, yes, which focuses on demons. Which also begs the question, how would he feel about the Sisters of Battle?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think he'd be fine with them, provided... Well, I think he'd actually be fine with them because they would just follow him wherever he wanted to go. I mean, they are very devout. And I think the problem he would have anyways is trying to explain to him, it's like, no, I am not a god. Of course, your grace. It's like, no, seriously. Stop it. Kind of thing. But, I mean, I think, yeah, probably the whole heretics thing he might have a problem with. But I think he wouldn't have a problem with the other two.
Yeah, because they're just focused on things in relation to aliens and demons.
Now, something, though, that is kind of interesting about this, though, is that the one thing he might have a problem with that is that, okay, so when the Emperor was around during the Great Crusade anyways, what everybody believed in, it was called the Imperial Truth. It was this atheistic kind of concept, but one of the things that they kind of ignored or moved around or just straight out lied about was the warp. and things that are the warp entities.
Right.
So at this point, anyways, the cat's kind of out of the bag. I mean, not for everybody. Actually, if you're just a regular person in the Imperium, you don't know what chaos is. You just don't.
You just know that there's such things as demons. But
Well, you don't even really. There's evil.
yeah,
There's this evil thing out there, and it's going to get you unless you obey the emperor and give us your money. But but with, like, for instance, even back in the day in the Great Crusade, anyways, even the Space Marines didn't know about chaos. Even the Primarchs didn't know about it. So the cat is kind of out of the bag with that. So I don't know how he would maneuver around that. What do you think?
well, first off, I think at least some of the Space Marines knew about it. Well, they'd have to, because psychers are connected to the warp.
Yeah, and okay, but the Psychers it was the entities that lived in the warp. That was the whole thing that was just kind of like this minutia. So there were some people that, I mean, like, for instance, nobody knew about Korn or Zinch or the other two guys, Nurgle and Slanesh, or Malik. Malice. In fact, a lot of people still don't know about Malice. He's really actually just not really talked about.
Or
But
the who knows how many other minor gods that
deities
there are.
There's got to be a chaos god of sloppiness. But
Procrastination.
What's that? Procrastination. Yeah. He's probably the most powerful chaos god ever, but he just hasn't gotten around to it yet. Anyways, I digress. So what do you think, anyways? How do you think he would deal with the fact that there are so many more people now, anyways, that know about the chaos entities?
I think at this point he would just go, pretty much, it's a little late to try to pull back on that.
A little late to stuff it into the box.
Yeah.
Nope, this isn't real, but I've seen it. Nope. It was a magic trick. Poof. So you think he would just kind of go along with it?
I think he would. Yeah, I think actually in that way he would prefer the Inquisition existing, because they actually have at least done a significant amount of work not to have it like explode in everybody's faces.
Right. They've kept it under wraps quite a bit.
Yes, they've been able to reduce the amount of information flowing out concerning it.
Now, some of their tactics, I believe, are a little extreme.
Well, but their motto is "innocence proves nothing." So
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, for instance, the First War of Armageddon, which started the whole problem between Grimnar and the Inquisition, because the Inquisition was like, all right, we won the battle. Congratulations, everybody. Now, if you just line up along this wall, we'll go ahead and shoot every single one of you. What? Yep, we got to get rid of them, because if they spread the word of chaos, then chaos will spread. No. These guys fought valiantly. They saved Armageddon. Well, it was for the good of the Empire. Now, this will also be good for the Empire. Stand in a line, like I just said. No, we're not doing that. But regardless, I have a lot of problems with the Inquisition. I know you like them a little bit more than I do.
Do not have any oversight, and they are,
which is scary.
From my knowledge, and they are actually the only ones that can technically call an exterminatus, which for those who don't know what that means, that's basically we're going to vaporize this world because we feel is not worth saving.
I think also, by the way, he did mention anyways, something we could discuss anyways, the state of the Space Marines. Now, we kind of mentioned anyways their thoughts anyways, now that they all know about chaos. But the whole second founding aspect of it, I wonder if he would actually expunge that.
I also wonder how he would feel about the Black Templar.
Or the there's another group that's like, they actually fight with ecclesiarchy. The Templars, I want to no, the ecclesiarchs or something like that. What's that?
They don't technically fight for the ecclesiarchy.
No, but they're one of the few chapters anyways that solely believe anyways that the Emperor is God. Most Space Marines don't believe that.
Well, they still pray to him.
The Space Wolves definitely don't. The Ultramarines don't. I mean, okay, the first founding ones definitely don't. But I think, anyways, he would get rid of the second founding just simply because I think, anyways, he would think, anyways, that he had enough power that he could still control legions. And legions are easier to move than chapters.
Which
What do you
means
think?
he wouldn't have learned anything.
What do you mean?
Well, let's see. The last time that he had the legions together, the Horse Heresy was created because he couldn't even manage all of them at one time.
Oh, no, he did. And they conquered almost all of the galaxy. And then he made the stupid decision of going, all right, Horus, you're in charge. I'm leaving. And everybody went, well, why are you leaving? He's like, I'm not telling you. And then he left. I mean, the way that he left was just so... It just doesn't make any sense for a leader, anyways, to do that. It's just literally just kind of like, why should I tell you guys? You're insignificant. And then he just left. I mean, remember, there's a lot of good things, anyways, about the Emperor, but one of the things that, quite frankly, anyways, drives me nuts about him, anyways, is just his sheer arrogance. It's so irritating. But, okay, so we got one last thing, and then we do have to move on, anyways. What do you think about it, what he'd do with the Primarchs, his sons?
We would hope that he would know which of the Primarchs are actually still alive, since, his mind has been wandering around the warp.
That's a good point. We need to go save Dorn. No, you don't. Oh no. But we could get Conrad. It's like, but he's a bad guy. Wait, he's still around? Son of Monkey's uncle. I thought he'd been dead for all these years. No.
It's like, oh, and I know where Alfarius is, or Omegon. It's like, why do we want to know that?
Oh, because he's about to destroy the entire Imperium and reclaim it as his own. What? Nothing. We need to go get him, though, now. But no, I agree with you. I think it'd be cool because if he showed up, I think because he had been floating around, his mind had been floating around the warp, he'd know anyways where the lost Primarchs are.
Or at least have a better inkling of where they would be.
So they could try to go find them.
Yeah.
But what do you think about his two sons that are actually still floating around in Imperial space? King Smurf and the Lion.
I have no idea how he would treat them. Personally, I'm still wondering what the Lion's been doing for the past however long it's been since he disappeared.
Well, he's been doing Lion things. He's been kicking the crap out of people and then moving on to other places to kick the crap out of people. He's actually having a good time, I think. He's just kind of going from place to place, like murdering heretics.
Without anybody apparently knowing?
No. People, they're just like, wait, isn't that? And then he disappears. And they're like, oh, well, wait a minute. He hasn't, as far as I know, anyways, he hasn't gone back and reclaimed the Dark Angels yet. And when he does, anyways, that's going to be an interesting reckoning because then he's going to have a huge, sizable force. And I'm betting his next step, anyways, is he's going to go talk to his brother.
What's going to be really interesting is what he's going to say about Cypher. I think that's what his name is.
Cypher?
Yeah.
Cypher who?
One of the people that they don't talk about because they don't exist.
Oh, you're talking about the
fallen angels or whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
the fallen angels. Yeah.
The ones that don't exist. They don't exist. Really. Yes, they don't exist. It's like, really, then who are you killing over there that happens to wear the exact same uniform? Nobody. As
he's sitting there like punching his head in. Nobody. This isn't anybody. It's like, okay. Calm down there, Mr. Lion.
His name just happens to be Gabriel.
But that's a story for a different time. And we actually kind of briefly talked about that anyways, way back when we were talking about space wolves. I don't know why we got into the subject anyways of the Lion, or I think it was if Lehman Russ came back now anyways, of those two sitting there, what would end up happening? But what do you think the Emperor would do with the two? I think Gilman is a conversation that we do need to have, but I think with the Lion anyways, if the Emperor showed up and the Lion kind of, he shows up and the Lion's sitting there anyways, the Lion would just, I think, take one look at him anyways and kind of slightly smirk and go, took you long enough. What are my orders? Because that's the Lion. I mean, he's always been he's been the first. He's faithful, kind of thing. Well, okay. I mean, the first, anyways. The Dark Angels of the First Legion. Nah, that's what I mean. But with Rabute Gilman,
Furious.
Yeah, the lion's like, well, what took you so long? Well, what are my orders? All right, Alfarius. He looks shocked. He's like, yes, it's Alfarius. And he looks at him and smiles and just goes, that is a lie. And then poof, he disappears. Anyways, no. Okay, we got to focus. So, with Rabute Gilliman, what do you think the Emperor would think anyways when he comes back anyways? Because remember, Rabute has been running the Empire now for what? 1,000 years, I want to say? I mean, collectively, probably about 1,500. Because remember the first time he died. Oh, died.
Well, yeah, he pretty much died, and then, ironically enough, he was saved by the combined efforts of the Mechanicus and Eldari.
Well, and it was also his own genetic thing. It was slowly healing him too. They brought him back faster. Anyways, that's something we'll probably actually talk about next month anyways when we talk about the Smurfs. But what do you think the Emperor would think anyways of how he's ruled the Empire in his stead?
I think he would, if anything, I do not think he'd be upset at him, because he's actually trying to bring it back to what it should be.
Okay.
Which has been significantly screwed over due to, in no small part, the High Lords of Terra.
I was going to say, that's the one thing I think anyways, if he came back, he'd kind of look over at the High Lords of Terra, then back at Gilliman, and he's like, you haven't killed these guys yet? Why don't we do it together? It'll be a good father-son bonding moment. Here, you can take my sword. I'll just use my fist. It's been a while. But, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, like him or hate him, I think Gilliman's actually done a pretty decent job keeping the Empire together.
What he's been given, anyways. With what he's been given.
And he is slowly starting to change some things. Like, for instance, I mean, we've talked, and we both kind of agree on this, right? The ecclesiarchy, anyways, is honestly the dredges of the Imperium. It's what keeping it, anyways, from going forward, right?
Yes, but it's also the problem is it's also one of the things that's keeping a lot of humanity together.
Yeah,
which is one of the huge problems, is because you had this religion, that's keeping everybody together, but at the same time, it's basically saying you can't change anything, or else everything's gonna be screwed over, and then you will be going against this religion.
And by the way, if you go against the religion, we kill you.
Yeah.
Not poo-poo, well, you think what you want to think. It's like, no, we're going to get this big axe out anyways, and we're going to hack you to death, and then your family to death, because who knows? They might also believe the same thing. And then your neighbors, because you talk to them. And then their neighbors, because they might have talked about the same thing. But at the same time, anyways, right now, anyways, I mean, especially around McCrag, you're starting to see, anyways, a lot of the disappearance, anyways, of the ecclesiarchy there, which is kind of interesting. So he is actually slowly starting to kind of move in the direction, anyways, of kind of getting rid of it, which I think, anyways, the Emperor would understand. But thank you, by the way, Jason. This was actually been kind of an interesting conversation, but we really do need to get back to the Orks. I mean, this is our last video, anyways, with the Orks.
Well, anyways, thank you all who sent in your questions, and to those that have more questions, go ahead and send them in on the comments or send them to our website at www.ashraka.com. But Zeckthar, I believe we have made a terrible mistake.
What? Really? What?
Well, with all our chroniclings, we have covered 5 of the great Orc clans, but we failed to mention the 6th, known as the Death Skulls.
Oh no. Oh dear.
Indeed. Now I figured, because this is our last week talking about Orcs, we might want to give a brief description of them. And I thought, who would be better to do it than my dear brother, Zeckthar?
Really? Well, sure. Of course I could do that. Well, okay. So the Death Skulls, they're the blue guys. So, as you know, anyways, Yuksen, the orcs, they have all their different colors. The Death Skulls are the ones, anyways, that paint themselves blue. And you remember, anyways, what that color means?
It means lucky.
Yep. And they paint themselves this reason because they're the looters. They live for it. They live to be thieves and filchers.
Well, not necessarily thieves. They just grab what they want. So pillagers. Pillagers would be a better word.
Well, no, they do their own thievery too. They have no problem stealing other orc stuff. I mean, there are times. So normally, what ends up happening after a battle is that these Death Skulls, anyways, they all rush the battlefield, right? And they grab as much crap as they can, anyways, and they huff it back, anyways, to their encampment. And then other orcs, anyways, they're just like, you know what? They might have some cool stuff. Let's go see if we can trade with them for it. And then they might get like something shiny back, but then they're pretty much going to get all their stuff stolen as they go into this place. They come back like, ooh, I got this big new shooter. And then they go, hey, where's all my teeth? And well, that's what happens when you run into a Death Skulls encampment. They tend to steal all your crap. I kind of actually like the Death Skulls. I mean, they're plunderers without equal. They are tremendously adept at looting, borrowing, scrounging, scavenging, and stealing things from their fellow orcs, and notoriously bad at giving them back. So you could see that, right? It's just kind of like, hey, that's a nice shooter. Can I borrow that? Oh, okay. And then thanks, and then just leaving. But to get into more kind of a detail, anyways, of how the Death Skulls deal with combat, they proceed to see it in two-stage process, often hurrying with the killing bit in an effort to speed along the scavenging spree that follows. After the battle, the boys really go to work, furiously stripping the corpses of the fallen and everything from ammunition to bootlaces. Many Death Skulls will take grisly trophies, such as their victim's scalp or skull, into the bargain. Only when the loot is returned to the camp does the inevitable infighting breaking out, as the Death Skulls trade, barter, and auction off their ill-gotten gains. Now, one of the things, though, that is kind of interesting about these guys is that they, other than, who is it, the Bad Moons? Bad Moons are the guys, right, Yuksen, that have the most mechs.
Yeah, that's generally because they have, well, not generally, they do have the most teeth.
Right. Well, it's not only that, but they also tend to build these things, right?
Right.
So the Death Skulls are a close second. But the reason why they're a close second is because they tend to steal these things. And then they repaint them in blue and strap on whatever they want. Now, when I say they steal these things, it's sometimes they steal them. Most of the time what they do is they end up looting them. So at the end of a battle, like for instance, with like the Imperium, you have a bunch of like scrapped out Lehman Russes, right, Yuksen?
Right.
And so they grab these things, they rope them up, and then they drag them back to camp. And then their mech boys, anyways, they get them working again. They paint it blue, and then they rush them back into battle. In fact, in some battles, anyways, if they've gone on long enough, they've been known to actually capture and reconstruct, anyways, like Imperial Titans and Eldar weapons, which that's just gotta be terrible. Can you imagine that? You're like, hey, isn't that a Titan? Why is it blue? And why is it coming towards us? Why is it shooting? Oh no.
Why does it have an orc grin on it?
Yeah. Why is it smiling at us now? I don't like this. The Death Skulls also have an interesting relationship, anyways, with the Gretchen. Because as you know, anyways, the Gretchen are smaller and sneakier, and they've got better fingers. So a lot of times they will actually apply their looting advantages, anyways, because they have these Gretchen that work with them. So they've got a little bit more of a symbiotic relationship with them.
Probably why the teeth go missing so well. Well, if you think about pickpocketing, an orc can be hard to do. A Grot or Gretchen, much easier.
Okay, so I would figure, anyways, these are the scenarios, anyways, of how they pickpocket an orc, okay? So you got the first scenario, an orc that doesn't have any Gretchen for the Death Skulls. He just goes, oh, look at that. The orc turns around, he punches him in the face. And as he goes down to the ground anyways, he just literally grabs everything in his pockets and then makes a break for it. The second alternative, he's sitting there and he's just kind of describing what's in his hands. You know, it's like this weird shooter or something like that. And while the orc is interested, his buddies, the Gretchen anyways, are sneaking up behind him anyways and taking everything out of his pockets.
Right.
So, but I digress. But what do you think of the Descals?
I do think they would be the ones they would definitely be second to the Bad Moons when it comes to weaponry and stuff like that. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're the ones that wield the most def guns, which are just basically they've taken, like, for example, las cans, welded them together, and put this rack that goes across and the ammo bucket on the other side. And just fire away. So they probably have the most jury-rigged stuff from other races than any of them, by far.
Speaking of which, I figured anyways we might be able to end this Vox by talking about some of those kooky tech weapons. One of them anyways that I was just actually kind of looking up that I know that you've done some research on is the teleport blaster. I figured we could actually talk about a bunch of these different weapons, but this is the one actually that I thought was fairly interesting. You mind giving the listeners anyways a little understanding of what this thing is?
Sure, and then maybe you can talk about the shock attack gun.
Yeah, that is actually my favorite. But I digress. The teleporter.
Okay, so the teleporta blasta is based somewhat off the technology of the teleporta devices, which some believe was created actually by Orkimedes, the big mech that is very mysterious and apparently helped during the Third War of Armageddon. Which, if he is the one who created the teleport tech, means that he actually was probably one of Nasdrag's mechs before he was taken by Gazgul.
Okay, so I do have a question about that real quick though. So we went back and we talked about how they kind of invented this technology, but how is the Beast able to teleport stuff through?
Well,
remember he was thousands of years before Gazgul.
It was probably something that was lost, because if you think about it, also the tech to create an attack moon was also lost, thankfully, for the Imperium anyways.
Which is actually kind of an interesting point. So are you saying anyways that they came up with it again? Or do you think that is Nazgul, right? No.
Nasdrag.
You think Nasdrag actually is there some sort of concept anyways of history with the orcs?
No. I think they just reinvented it again because
it'd have to be the same. Well, it would be very orcish. We have this new technology. It looks exactly the same as this one took place 3,000 years ago. Wow. But this one's better.
I wouldn't know because we don't keep track of these things.
Fair enough. Well, anyways, what does this thing do?
So the original tech was obviously teleporta stuff, so you could send people, or sometimes they'd have a personal one so that you could just bounce off to somewhere. So they decide also, though, to turn this into a weapon. What they do is they created this blaster that they hit somebody with this technology. It just randomly teleports them a short distance somewhere. So they could end up being just harmlessly sent back maybe 100 feet back. Or they could have been shot in the air by about 1,000 feet, obviously to their doom.
Right.
Or they could end up in a rock or another person.
But the orcs,
to them, it really doesn't matter. It's probably just humorous to them if anything happens.
Fair enough. They are orcs.
Like all of a sudden seeing one go shooting up randomly. I think an orc would probably laugh at that. It's all of a sudden,
right? But okay, so do they have a way of actually aiming it, or is it just kind of random? They shoot it at somebody and they just kind of go one way or the other, or something?
Yeah, it's just randomized. They don't know where they're going to end up.
So you can literally shoot somebody with this thing anyways, and they can just go back 5 feet.
Yeah.
Or they could be launched into space. Okay.
Well, not necessarily space. It isn't that far of a distance.
Oh, okay. So it's a little bit shorter distance than that.
Oh, yeah. It'd be like 1,000 feet or something like that.
Jeez. That's weird. It's not a really effective weapon either, if you stop and think about it. I mean,
It depends on what it hits, though. Imagine if it was a tank, or
well,
I'm not sure
I
if it
guess
would
that's
affect
another
a tank,
question.
but let's just say it hit a sentinel, and
Well,
all of a
okay,
sudden it appeared in the wrong place.
right. Well, okay, so what if you shoot, like, for instance, a Titan? Will it actually move the Titan? Or is it just
I
too big?
don't think so.
Okay. So it
Because
does
it
have to have be a
encompasses
certain
somebody in
size.
basically a bubble sort of thing, and then transports them. So I think that'd be a little bit big.
So a Titan, anyways, if like a mech shot a Titan with it, anyways, it would just be like the size of a bubble, anyways, that would just disappear and it would move somewhere else.
No. The weapon creates this warp space bubble.
Right.
So the bubble would have to be big enough to encase the Titan.
Oh, it has to encase whatever, anyways, it's being shot at.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just like take chunks of whatever. So if you like
Because
shot
what
it
it
like
does is it folds its target in a warp space bubble and then displaces it at random.
okay, well, no, what I'm saying is like, for instance, if you like shot it at like a mountain, it's obviously not going to move the mountain, right? But that size
Right.
of bubble, anyways, is to take that part of the mountain out like a chunk and then
Um,
relocates it, or is it because it's too big, anyways? It just won't it just won't work.
Probably won't work. If it would do anything, it'd probably take whatever rock was on the side of the mountain.
Okay, so like, the biggest thing we can.
I want
do-
to get
grab
the
it.
mountain, and it's just a rock.
Okay. Well, that is about as quirky as, and it is probably. I think it is actually both of our favorite weapon, right? The shock attack gun.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the favorites.
So no one really knows exactly how it works, but the shock attack gun projects a narrow force field through the warp, beginning at the end of the barrel and ending roughly where the gun is aimed. The portals look like small spinning black holes. In this way, it is possible for living creatures to travel through the warp towards the exit point. So you have on one side, anyways, you have this it's like a hose that sucks up things. And the other side, it blasts it out, right?
Right. And
so-
you have to take this in mind. Basically, they're sending these people through the warp, and time flows differently in the warp.
Yeah, that it does.
So what's coming out is, yeah, it can be messed up.
Yeah, a very horrifying experience, some would say.
Yeah.
And no orc, even though orcs are kind of insane, no orc would go, yeah, no, I'm going to go through the warp. So pretty much mech operators, they just kind of suck up the smaller orcoids that are around them. Be them snotlings, Gretchen, grots, it doesn't really matter. They're just like, hey, look at this trinket. And they're like, ooh, shiny. And they suck them up.
Or for the ones that are more intelligent, it's more of like, hey, and then grabs one of them, just stuffs them in there.
Stuffs them in there. Yeah.
Because you have to admit that grots are probably a little bit more intelligent, so they may not want to go towards the giant hose.
Right. Now, the thing that comes out the back end anyway, or the barrel, so to speak, it's sometimes still a grot, and sometimes it's not. It's like we said, anyways, it literally travels through the warp. So whatever's coming out the other side, anyways, it's very dangerous. But what it is, we don't know. It could be just simply just a deranged snotling. He sucked up a snotling, anyways, and you're shooting it out, anyways, and it's gone through the warp. All that horribleness, anyways. It's just seen with its little tiny brain, and it's being shot back out, and now it's just mad.
It's just like
it's just lost its brain.
this insane, like
Yes. And it just wants to eat whatever, anyways, is closest to it. Now, sometimes that might be, anyways, the enemy in front of it, in which case it's just like murder. Or two, anyways, it might take a look at its arm and go, murder, and eat that instead. You don't know because, it's going through the warp. Other times, though, it's just like literally like a giant plasma ball, anyways. It's just getting shot out at like the speed of light and just blasts through like anything in front of it. You just really don't know, anyways, what's coming out of the back end or the front end of this thing. And like I said, nobody knows how this works. And even the orcs don't, I think, necessarily know how it works because they do tend to explode quite a bit, making them kind of even dangerous for the person firing them. But as you know, anyways, orcs are kind of okay with that.
And since it's kind of shooting them back out of the warp, don't they tend to also misfire and end up in places that they aren't originally aiming for?
Yeah, that does tend to happen. It's not the most accurate of weapons. It's probably the best way of putting it. Yeah, okay. You gotta love orc technology. It's just it is ridiculous. It's kooky. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's just kind of fun.
And to tell you the truth, I think whether it works or not, they enjoy it anyways. Or if not the one wielding it, the person next to it that sees it fail enjoys it.
Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
Excuse me, boss. We be done with the things you asked us, and well, we got bored. So we built you a thing.
Yeah, a cool thing.
Okay. I'm sorry, but what was your name again?
Snikrot.
Bah, you stupid kid. You asked me. Maybe Blagrot.
Shut up. You best be knowing when they're talking to us. They'd be asking for the bigger one.
Excuse me, but what did you all build? And more importantly, where did you get the supplies?
Oh, we got the scrap from the place we put the dead orcs in. The trash compactor?
Sure, if that's what you call it. You weird blue boys throw away some good scraps. Well, we built this so we can get around better.
Well, that seems pretty resourceful. It looks... What is it?
What? Why, that'd be a buggy.
A what?
A buggy. The orcs built a war buggy. You know what a war buggy is, right, Yuksen?
Yes, it is a four-wheeled vehicle manned by two orcs, one driver, and one person that's generally standing behind some sort of turret, be it like rockets or big shooters or sometimes a flamethrower, scorcha.
It looks like they put a flamethrower on the top of that one. Well, just real quick, actually, I can't believe they built a buggy out of our trash. But what's the difference between a war buggy and a truck? That's what I've always been confused with.
In comparison, a war truck is a transport vehicle. So instead of it being manned by two people, you can have like 15. And generally, the weapon that they have is just like a shooter that's mounted on the sides that they can shoot. Since they all have guns anyways, and they'll be randomly shooting out of it
because they're orcs. So let me get this straight real quick. So a buggy is just a smaller truck that can't carry as many people but faster
and has bigger guns on it.
And okay, wait a minute. They painted it red. Where did they? We don't have any red paint. Where did they get red paint?
You got me.
Yeah, what he said about them buggies. Now, any chance you got some juice for it? You want to test it out?
Bah, that's the problem. Without go juice, it's just stuck guns. Thump guns is better. Don't need mount to use. Just good old orky muscle to wield. There's large bore cannon that fire huge deca shells.
That'd be stupid. The Grotzookas be better.
You be stupid. Thump gun, best gun.
What? You calling me stupid? I'll fight ya! Man.
My toe.
Yes, well, our strange guests proceed to beat each other within an inch of their life. You want to tell the fine people listening what a Grotzooka is, Yuksen?
Okay, a Grotzuka is basically a giant blunderbuss. For those who don't know what blunderbuss is, you just take a whole bunch of crap and you shove it in, and then you load explosive in there, so it'll shoot whatever the crap is out the front. Generally,
It's normally a black powder weapon. Yes,
yeah.
black powder goes in the back end anyways. You throw whatever. Normally with a blunderbuss, normally you're going to actually put shot in the front of it.
But in this case, they generally take like the scrap that's on the floor of the mech shop
Right.
and just jam it in there, and then so it has a very small range. It compares to most weapons, but at the same time is very deadly because you're shooting like shrapnel and random sharp bits and solids just straight out. So it's great for
Short range.
like infantry.
Yeah. Infantry and short range.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you get too far away from that thing anyways, it's just going to kind of, it's kind of like a shotgun, but it shoots anything, right?
Yeah. And a lot more of it.
Right. And Grotzukas, if I recall right, anyways, they range in size, don't they? You could have something that is orc held, or you could have something that is actually mounted on like a tank, right?
Well, Grotzukas are generally in reference to those that are mounted either on a tank or on a can.
On a what?
Killer can. They're basically like a
Oh, okay.
walker that's manned by a Grot or Gretchen.
Okay, you call them cans? I thought they were called kilocons.
Killer cans, Kanz.
Okay, fair enough. That makes so much more sense now. Well, anyways, it seems that our two green friends are done. They don't look too terribly good. You think we should help them?
Yes, they don't look like they will make it otherwise. Anyways, how about we talk about the bubble chucker?
What?
It is an example of force field technology, weaponized by orcs rather than being used for protection. It fires unstable force bubbles at the enemy that explode on impact. They vary wildly in size and solidity, some like large balls that hit with a negligible strength, whilst others float down like small soap bubbles, and after bursting, inflict heavy damage.
Okay, hang on half a second here, Yuksen. So you're saying the bubble chucker is they made a bubble gun?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
what kids use, but then they
It's like
turned it
a
into a
giant
machine of war?
artillery sized
Bubble gun.
bubble launcher.
Does it go? Does it make the bubble noises?
Maybe. And I just had this image of, okay, yeah, so when they shoot out, it's just like this, almost looks like a regular ball just going straight towards, and then all of a sudden one will just randomly spat out and float in the air, and then until it gets to the tank and hits the turret, and then all of a sudden the tank's vaporized.
I also see just
See
tank
the
anyway.
soldiers looking and watching and going, what the heck?
I also see anyways this gun anyways is being painted white with a pink unicorn on the side of it. And whenever it fires, there's like these little bells that kind of jingle. Oh, that's just me. Who normally uses these things?
Like I said, it's more commonly used as a mech gun, so mechs would use them. I assume more leaning towards big mechs using them.
So are they actually carrying them, or are they like on tanks and stuff?
They're generally carried,
Ah, okay.
or they can be used, I believe, as artillery also. So they may have like a couple of grots trying to man it.
So some of their uses artillery. They also bring a giant fan with them, so that when they fire it off, they can point the fan at it so it can shoot farther. Right?
Maybe there's a squig for that.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably have a squig for that. The fan squig. Anyways, I digress. Speaking of bigger guns, have you ever heard of the tractor cannon?
Yes, but it's been a while since I looked into it. Care to rehash the old gray matter?
Certainly. Now, when most people would think tractor cannon, you would think like a tractor with a cannon on it. But no, not so with the orcs. What they're really trying to say is it's really a tractor beam that's a cannon, and it projects. The beam is projected towards an enemy target, and the beam pulls it towards the source with a large amount of force. Often the gun is used to scatter formations by dragging large objects through them, or even firing the cannon at troops. This throws them around as if they were in a storm. Vehicles and buildings can be torn apart by the forces applied to them. Now, there's two things about this that I do have to mention. One, it can also be used as anti-air, which is a little bit tricky. So you see what the Orks do is they pivot it up towards the air when you see like Thunderhawks flying through, right? And then they try to aim at it, and then they pull the trigger and they hope they can get it. And when they see the aircraft wobbling a little bit, they're like, we got it. And then they point it straight to the ground and it goes, poof.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how they use it. Sometimes they can't get quite all of it. So they really start tugging at it anyways, and that thing starts to weave all over the air, which sometimes works out for the Orks because it'll plow into other Thunderhawks. Sometimes it doesn't, and it plows into their own people. But it's still regardlessly good fun for the Orks that are actually sitting there on the ground trying to get these things. Now, these Orks, though, do have one particular problem. And that is sometimes, anyways, when the beam fires out anyways, and they're trying to pull it back towards them, right? Sometimes it goes wrong. And that means that the tractor cannon gets pulled towards what they're shooting at a very fast force. So sometimes, anyways, you see these tractor cannons all of a sudden just go flying towards the enemy, which is okay for the Orks because normally they're rather large and they run into things, killing more of their enemies. It's not good for the people firing the thing, but for the rest of the Orks, it's entertaining. As you can see, there kind of seems to be this reoccurring theme with Ork weapons. It's entertaining for everybody. Even the people that get blown up are entertaining other people. Or Orks, I should say.
In this case, also, if you think about it, if an Ork, well, actually, these are mainly fired by Grots, but if an Ork was manning it and he got sent forwards, he would love that because then he'd be able to get into close combat.
Okay, real quick before we move on, because I think, anyways, there's other technologies, anyways, that the Orks use that are very similar to this, but I do have to briefly mention, anyways, the Zap gun. Okay, these are used by Gretchen and Gretchen only, or Grots, whoever. We already kind of talked about that. They're kind of interchangeable, but the thing is that they fire the trigger anyways, and it sends this electrical current really fast into enemy infantry, which sounds like a great weapon, right? It sounds like something that should work. But here's the problem. There's so much electricity running through this thing. The person that actually pulls the lever to fire it, it actually electrocutes them as they're doing it. So as long as they can hold on to the trigger, the weapon will continue to fire. If said Gretchen, anyways, eventually explodes because too much current was run through him, or he's had enough, anyways, of the electricity and lets go, the weapon stops. So if you are somebody that fires this awesome weapon, just know you're going to get electrocuted. It's going to hurt a lot, but the longer you can hold on to it, the more destruction you can do.
Sorry, I just had this thought of all of a sudden going, okay, before you pull this, hold on a sec. And they take like a metal wire, wrap it around one of the legs and attach it to something that needs a power source. Go.
Our truck, it's got a dead battery. Oh, well, we can fix that. Well, not only that, but I'm assuming, anyways, these guys that actually fire it, none of the Orks have actually told them that it's going to electrocute them.
Oh, yeah.
It's more humor, anyways, for the Orks around them. They're just like, here, watch this,
Kind of like those cartoons on Terra 42 where they get electrocuted.
Yeah.
They spaz out, light up. You see their skeleton in there.
Yeah. And sometimes, anyways, these Gretchen tend to explode afterwards, which is even more entertaining for the Orks. But anyways, like I said, the about the tractor cannon, they have kind of this interesting technology that you've seen in other weapons that the Orks have used, right?
Yes. Actually, it reminds me of the strange weapons that use lift-a-drop-a technology. Shall I elaborate?
Oh, please do, sir. Please do.
Okay, so there are two main variations that use lift-a-drop-a technology. The idea behind it is that it uses a tractor beam, but instead of it drawing something, it basically just grabs a hold of whatever it is, and then, true to its obvious name, generally it'll be lifted up into the air, then brought back down to basically crush it.
Do
Now,
they move it
generally,
somewhere else? So they like lift it up in the air in one place and they drop it somewhere else?
no, generally they just thrash it back into the ground.
Okay, so this is far too advanced technology.
So as opposed to, like, for instance, the tractor cannon, anyways, which uses magnets. So instead of using magnets, so they use what, teleported technology? No, so they're using a different
No,
technology
it's
for that, right?
tractor technology.
Oh, it is? Okay, so they're still
They
using
use
magnets.
it's a continuous beam of tractor energy that's used basically to grab whatever it is. Now there is two different variations. One is main variations, I should say. One of them's the smash a gun, which is a artillery version. Then there are the ones that they call Hand of Gork, which is generally attached to either a battle wagon or more specifically, generally, they're gargants, which makes more sense why it'd be called that.
Okay, but also, anyways, you said a battle wagon. Is that like a tank for an orc?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or is it more like a half track?
No, it's
It's a tank.
yeah,
So, like, for
it's
instance, we said the Death Skulls, anyways, they reformed Lehman Russ tank so they could use it themselves, anyways. They would call that a battle wagon.
no, that probably just call that a looted vehicle.
A looted tank.
Okay. But this
If
is
they
kind
like
of the.
completely disassembled it and then created something with it,
Oh, okay.
that would be a battle wagon.
Okay. But a battle wagon is pretty much a tank. So we got
Yeah,
a truck that's pretty much more of like a half track. We've got, or a giant truck that just carries. Just carries.
there
Or
are generally trucks, bikes, half tracks, or war tracks.
oh,
I mean,
okay. So they actually do have war tracks too. Okay. And then
um,
instead of tanks, they're called battle wagons, or do they also have
yeah,
tanks?
no,
Okay.
they don't
Okay.
call any of. Well, I think actually they do. I think they have a grot tank. I
Oh,
think.
okay. Well, maybe next week, anyways, we can look into that and we'll rectify that situation if they do have something called a tank. Other than I do know that they do have things called looted tanks, which
Yeah,
we actually just described. But anyway, sorry, carry on. So a battle wagon is pretty much an orc tank, and that's what they put this shock cannon on.
they call it the Hand of Gork. And
Oh,
it's a
sorry,
type
the
of
hand of
liquid
Gork. My
dropper.
bad.
And it is generally either put on that or more specifically on one of their gargants is another thing that they generally put it on, which kind of makes more sense why they call it the Hand of Gork because, gargants are supposed to represent, the gods of Gork and Mork.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I get that.
And actually, those, since it's
Oh.
mounted on something that can actually move one way or the other,
Mhm.
smashing guns you really can't because since they're artillery, you can't really move them left or right very well.
I mean, you can. It's just you're saying it's they also use them as standard artillery, which means
Yeah,
they're stable. They don't move.
right.
Okay.
But in this case, you could technically move them left to right if it's like on a battle wagon
A stompa.
or a stompa or a gargant.
Right. Do mechs ever actually just have them attached to them, or are they too big
No,
for that?
they're generally too big for that.
They're too big for that. Okay. Well, no, I was just wondering. Well, okay. Could Grazgul could he actually attach one of these things, anyways? Because could he actually be big enough to do it, or are they even significantly larger than that? It's just like, look, this thing is
It's
only
more
going to
of
be
the fact. It's less of the fact that whether or not an orc could hold it, so much as it being operated.
okay.
Because it probably takes more than one person to operate. I mean, if Gazgul wanted like a platform strapped on his back,
Right.
have two or 3 grots hanging onto him on his back while trying to operate this thing.
I mean, he might. Orks are kind of a strange race. Do we have any other kind of kooky weapons that we kind of want to talk about?
Hey, you should talk about squid catapults.
Yeah, them squig lobbers be good fun.
Oh, look, they're still alive. Okay, well, first shall I explain what type of squigs are used first? But that's boring.
Yeah, don't talk about that. Talk about the smashing.
If I don't, they won't understand.
Me quick.
Anyways, the squigs used for this catapult are known as buzzer squigs. Now, buzzer squigs are an insect-like variation of the squig. They're so vicious that a swarm can strip the flesh off a man-sized creature within seconds. Incidentally, no matter how voracious their appetite, they actually won't eat orks, grots, and snotlings due to the disliking the taste of the symbiotic algae that flows through the bloodstream. You may ask how they are able to use these squigs. Well, we take them and put them in pots with the little holes. Hey! And when they good and mad, we load them in our special catapults and let them fly. When the pots break, the swarm of enraged squigs attack the enemy. I thought I was supposed to... You was taking too long.
Stupid lobbers. They just wood and scrap metal put together. Not like us truckers.
You get it, clever work. We make them to be taken apart and put back together. Also make holes in them to make them lighter so the grots can carry them.
They still break apart, stupid.
That's even better. When the springs for the launching arm be cranked too much, it breaks on the grots, sending them everything flying, or when one of them gets loaded instead of a pot is launched. It's good fun.
Yeah, that be the fun part.
No, the fun part be watching the biggie boys running around like stupid grots. That be the best part.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. Them piggy boys don't know what hit them.
Now, the splatter cannon. Let's talk about the splatter cannon, should we?
Ooh, that be good taka.
It is a cannon which fires a splatter shell, named so because of the irregular way it travels across the battlefield. The shell consists of several linked rockets attached to a chain with a large metal ball at the end. The initial rocket is launched and the rest are fired on timers, giving it a particularly unpredictable trajectory.
Okay.
The ball and chain whip across the battlefield, slashing through anything it hits before crashing to the ground.
Pardon me, brother. So, so is this a fairly weighted ball? Or is it light and the chain is the thing is actually causing the damage?
I think it's moderately weighted. It isn't like, light, or else it went really head towards the ground at all.
Well, yeah, I didn't imagine it being just like this giant ball. So when they fired it, just kind of barely dragged across the ground. What I'm saying is it the chains themselves, anyways, that are whipping around because the rocket is spinning this thing, and the ball is actually just kind of, because the ball is moving with this particular weight proportioned, is dragging it around, or is it more like the rocket is actually propelling the ball that's heavy enough, anyways, that it's splattering things that it hits?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay. So
think of it this way. Okay, so you have the ball and it's shot off with the first rocket. Once it lands or whatever, when the next one launches, the next one's on part of the chain. And so that's what makes it spin a different direction, wherever that's going to go. And so it's whipping this basically razor sharp, kind of like barbed wire chain thing.
Okay.
Along with this ball stuck on the end of it.
Right. No. I understand the concept. I was just wondering, anyways, that the chain is the more important part. So, and here. Okay. So let's start anyways from the launch, right? So the first missile is probably going to be the largest one because it's going to shoot it in the right direction, right?
Right.
So when it shoots it anyways, everything is dragging behind it until it hits the ground,
Right.
which I'm assuming anyways activates one of these other rockets, right?
Well, they're on a timer.
Okay. So either this sounds like a really cool thing, but with the orcs, it probably isn't.
Well, here's
It's
the
probably
thing.
just
First
ridiculous.
off, you fire this thing. We don't know how long the timers are set.
I know.
In one case, it's like it could hit the ground. It'll sit there for like 10 seconds before the next rocket goes off, or it could still be in the air. All of a sudden, the second rocket goes off.
I know. Well, and that's why I was kind of asking anyways about how heavy the ball is, because if the ball anyways lands and it's heavy enough and the second rocket goes off, if it's too heavy, it's just going to sit there and drag instead of having it being launched again. Does that make sense?
I would assume it would have to be light enough that the rocket would have to be able to help launch it around the field.
Okay. Well, which you could do anyways, if the first one launches and you have it timed well enough anyways, that before it lands, it fires off the next rocket, because then the next propulsion anyways and it starts shooting off in another direction, right? So then the ball moves off in that direction along with the chain. And are these okay? I'm thinking too much anyways, like the Imperium here. Think like an orc. Think like an orc. So this is how I would do it if I was an orc, right? I would launch the first one anyway, so it could get out to wherever I needed to go anyways. And then I would probably
you think.
What's that?
If you're an orc, that's as far as you think. You wouldn't care.
No, because we got to time the other stuff. So then I probably set their other timers off anyways, about a second off from each other, because I'm like, oh, that'd be funny if it went left or right or whatever, kind of thing. And so it would hit it wouldn't even hit the ground, and then all the other rockets would just go. So it would be like the spinning ball chain. It's just like zipping around the battlefield.
Right.
That what it does, or is it more like a mine anyways, where it launches and then drops, and then everybody just like, okay, it's dead, and then everybody moves forward, and then all of a sudden another rocket goes up, and then it kind of dances around for a while, and then it drops again.
I'm seeing sort of like it hits the ground. If another rocket launches, it lifts the ball up along with the chain. But each time, of course, when it lands, it's shifting where that chain is. And so that shifts where the rocket would be shooting off anyways, on top of the fact that it's who knows where along the chain.
So hang on half a second. Maybe I'm missing a point here anyways.
So it's not like it's heavy enough to just...
Yuksen, hang on half a second.
Stop.
Yuksen, hang on half a second. Maybe I'm missing this point. Is it just one chain?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That makes it completely different. I was thinking anyways that each one of these rockets was attached to a chain, and the ball was like at the center.
No.
So then when you fire this thing anyways, and when another one goes off, it just goes off in a different direction. And now you have two rockets anyways competing with two different chains, and they're spinning all over the place. Okay.
It's just one chain attached to
large now it makes a little bit more sense. So it's like more like a spinning dervish of chain. The chain is the damaging part, right?
Well, being hit by a giant metal ball isn't going to be very...
But it's more importantly the chain anyways zipping around the ball anyways in a circular motion with spikes on it anyways.
Whatever direction it's moving anyways.
Yeah, it's just slicing people up. That's the important part. Okay. All right. Well, okay.
Well, the important part is it does massive damage. That's the important part.
So, sorry.
Also, as you can assume, because of the fact that it's so sporadic and the way it's built and stuff, it is especially effective when it comes to scattering ground troops.
Right. So, okay. So I know this is the Orks. So, I'm assuming that this thing misfires every once in a while. How does that work?
Well, the ways that I could think they'd misfire is if the rocket went off. Well, if they all went off at once, that wouldn't be helpful. Or if only one went off and then none of the other ones went off. Because they just thump into the ground, maybe roll a little bit. And that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I'll take out one person, maybe. And that's it.
That'd be good, Taka. Me should build one.
Not be better than the squid catapult.
What? What you say?
Nothing. I'm sure it'll work like your dumb buggy that got no juice in it, you stupid git.
Me getting tired of you calling me stupid.
Whoa!
Cheese and crackers! You two cut it out! You're acting like a couple of mad boys!
No. We ain't mad boys.
Yeah, we be good uns. We just orcs.
Well, you sure aren't acting like it. You're crazed, delusional, psychopathic
Pardon
bastard.
me, Zeckthar, but what's a mad boy?
They's lucky.
Yeah, but stupid and crazy.
Yes, they are stupid and crazy. You see, when feral orcs are introduced to normal orc society, the mad boys are the orcs that cannot bear the sudden mental strain of exposure to advanced technology and are collectively known as mad boys or nutters.
Oi, or the confused.
Yeah, or dum-dums.
Nobody calls them that stupid.
Well, maybe we should just call them Snot Rock.
Whoa!
Enough!
Sorry.
Yeah, what you said.
Anyways, these derogatory names are used by their fellows and are usually grouped together in squads that can provide to be either a secret weapon for the orc force or a terrible hindrance. As a result of their psychosis, even other orcs will be careful to keep their distance from a mad boy. Once combat erupts, mad boys can prove to be savage fighters or can suddenly be overwhelmed by their insanity and start attacking other orcs, or argue over whether the particular tree looks like Gork or Mork, or huddle in a gibbering panic. With a mad boy, other greenskins never know exactly how they will behave, which represents both the peril of these insane orcs and the possibilities. Mad boys often form informal retinues for weird boys and live apart from the orcs in small shanty towns. Mobs of mad boys are considered to be lucky, like our two greenskins friends said. Friends is a relative term, but their presence a sign of good fortune. However, this does entail a degree of inconvenience, such as when they decide to hold an impromptu shouting contest in the middle of a night raid, or pelt the foe with a volley of stick bomb pins before waiting expectantly for the loud bangs to start. You got what happened there, Yuksen?
Sorry, I just had two different images. One is they had the bomb still in their hand, or for some reason they thought that just the pins themselves would work as explosives, so they had like a box of just pins.
That would probably work out better anyways to the mad boys if they just ducked a bunch of pins.
I just think that would be funny. All of a sudden, here, take this. Boxes.
They'll scoop up a handful of pins and just huck them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking more along the lines it was probably the other way around, where they take the stick bombs, they pull the pin out, huck the pin, and then just sit there and wait for the pin to explode. And then, well, yeah. Anyways, regardless, the fact remains that mad boys are surprisingly potent assets on the battlefield, for their antics often confound the foe. Even the most gifted tactician cannot predict the anarchic movements of the mob of mad boys caught up in the excitement of battle. After all, how can you second guess an enemy who is likely to tear apart an infantry platoon with their bare hands as they are to mill about picking snot grubs out of each other's noses? I mean, they're just completely and utterly unpredictable.
Not like orcs weren't already unpredictable to most tacticians.
Mad boys take this to Jedi level.
Where's your Jedi?
Nothing you need to worry about. Stupid git. Well, what do you think of the mad boys there, Yuksen?
Well, they certainly are mad. Like I said, it's interesting in the fact that first of all they are considered lucky.
Yeah.
It also seems funny that they would possibly be in the middle of combat and then just all of a sudden they'd stop and like look up in the sky and go, "Hey, that looks like Mort, doesn't it? No, it looks like Gord." All of a sudden they start creating their own brawl inside of this middle of this combat.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what they are. I mean,
It's like,
the only reason I think that the orcs actually keep them around is because they think that they're lucky. And because the orc, wog energy kind of makes them lucky. Which is kind of a weird concept. Even though they're going to do their own thing, it might end up working better anyways in the battlefield, just simply because everybody's they're lucky. I wonder if the Death Skulls paint them blue all the way through.
they probably wouldn't need to.
Yeah, they're just like, we don't even need to paint these guys blue. They already got it. Well, we've kind of, unfortunately anyways, come to the end of the orcs. And Yuksen, I know you are a huge fan of the orcs, and I am as well anyways. So do we have any final thoughts? What do we want to, what's the conclusion of the orcs? I mean, are they monsters?
Well, technically, yes. I mean, they are monstrous beings and they aren't human.
Right. And the only thing that they live for anyways is actually fighting other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were good at crumping.
Shut up. You two. We're giving our final conclusion. You, both of you, sit in the corner.
Word conclusion.
Shut up. Sit in the corner.
Fine.
You wrote the Red Bull?
So, in my opinion, I mean, what I
love
think
that
is,
without interruptions. Go ahead, sir.
so, like you've mentioned, is we both love the orcs. I feel that, yeah, they're living their best life in this particular galaxy with war being the ever constant. It truly is theirs because of that.
Okay.
I like how somebody put it is basically they've already won.
Yeah.
They're doing what they want to do.
Which is unfortunately, anyways, the destruction of everything around them. That's the problem with them. So I got this weird concept. All right. Bear with me. So we were talking earlier about the Emperor, right? What happened if he showed up? And so here's a thought process. So the old ones used the Orks as their warriors, right?
Right.
What if the Emperor has captured a few orcs and started genetically tinkering with them? So that he could actually figure out a way that he could actually use that for humanity, or actually make them more like humanity. But like put that constructive destruction, so to speak, for the orcs to a different standpoint, like building or space travel or something, kind of thing. I know it sounds completely and utterly unorky, but that might be
as soon
the game
as they
winner,
run into another orc, the other orc would try to kill it.
What's that?
If they tried that, and as soon as any orc that had been genetically manipulated, if that was even possible, which I'm not sure if it would be.
Well, the old ones did it.
Yeah, but the old ones created the Eldar too.
Yeah, they're a little bit more advanced than probably the Emperor, but I'm just saying, if he could actually figure out how to do it, I think, that's the game winner, right? If you could actually get the orcs to work for humanity, that's the game winner. Humanity wins. Chaos is abolished.
You would have to have enough of them, though.
What's that?
You'd have to have enough of them, though.
Well, the orcs, mass produced. All that happens, is like, we need more orcs. We'll kill these ones. Their spores will come back up and we'll have like 10 times as many orcs. I'm just saying I know this would never happen, by the way. This never would. This is definitely thinking outside of the box. But if the Emperor could actually figure out anyways how to do this anyways, he wins. Now, mind you, anyways, he never would because he hates Xenos. So, because remember, it's always mankind first anyways and exterminate everything else. But if he had a change of heart, which he never would, but if he did, I think honestly, that's the game winner for the galaxy, right? It has to be. The only other thing I can think of anyways is that if he could actually control the hive mind for the Tyranids. But that's its own can of worms.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Do you really actually think that would be actually game over for the rest of the galaxy? If the Orks and the humans actually ended up fighting side by side, it would never happen. I understand that. Other than those occasional freebooters and blood axes that get paid by humanity, it would never happen. But if it did,
well, except for there are probably rare cases where they have taken over human worlds and
right, and we've got
that.
the Red Orks then. But like I said, anyways, that would win, right? I mean, there's too many humans and there's too many Orks. There'd be nobody that could stand against them,
except for other Orks. You'd have to be able to catch up to the other Ork populations.
They would exterminate the other Ork opposition first, or they would use, so going too far afield on this. Like I said, if there was some weird way, anyways, that you could actually get it to work where the Orks and the humans fought together, anyways, instead of against each other, they would conquer the rest of the universe, right? There's nothing that could stand against them.
That'd probably be true with any race with the Orks.
Well, maybe not the Dark Eldar. And the Votan never would do that. But
well,
the Necrons might have.
Plus, we're going off the same assumption that the Emperor would even think about it.
Right. We already said anyways, you never would. Because they're Xenos. But yeah, I know. I was just, like I said, it was a kooky thought. But getting back to the Orks of today, anyways. Personally, my favorite clan is probably the Blood Axes. Mainly because one of my favorite characters of all time is Snikrot. Who's your favorite character of the Orks? And who's your favorite clan?
I think that either the Death Skulls or the Snake Bites would be my favorite. Right now, I'd have to say probably my favorite when it comes to notable Orks would be Wurtsnag, because I just find it intriguing how you have an Ork that was kicked out of his tribe because he actually cared about his runts.
Well, not only that,
for some reason that appeals to me.
Well, not only that, but he's kind of like you, Yuksen. He's kind of a loner. He's just got his little, like runts, anyways, and he's fine.
Plus, he has an awesome beard.
Yeah,
but that's beside the point.
A squeak beard. Anyways, we do have to talk about one last thing with the Orks, especially because we are coming into the 42nd millennium, and the Great Green Wog is starting to take effect. What do you think, anyways, is going to happen with that?
I think a lot of plants are going to turn green. A lot of plants.
I actually disagree with you. Well, okay. I think they will eventually, but so Angron has reappeared, right?
Okay.
He's reappeared in the galaxy, and there is this rumor, anyways, that he killed Yarrick. As you know, Khazgul, anyways, that is his favorite boy.
Well, yeah, he set him free so he could fight him again.
Yes. So I think, anyways, I do think, anyways, a lot of worlds will turn green. I kind of agree with you on that. But I think what will first happen is he's going to take this great green wog and he's going to hunt the demon prince of Khorne.
Well, probably not just him. He's looking probably for anybody even remotely related to Angron also.
Yes. So he can get information on Angron, so he can find him and then stomp him out of existence. Which,
along with anybody who even knew him.
yeah, which by the way, as we've already talked about anyways, demon princes really can't be killed by heroes of the Imperium. But someone with enough Wog energy, they might be able to kill some demon prince. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it is a possibility. We don't know specific. Have we ever figured out specifically what happens if a demon is killed actually in the warp, whether or not they're dead? You think that they would
In
be
the warp?
because
No.
they wouldn't. Well, because when they're destroyed in the Materium, they're sent to the warp.
Right.
So if they're destroyed in the warp, they don't go anywhere. They're destroyed. It's not like they're vanished.
Maybe. Well, no, because we've got Tuska anyways, and every time anyways it reappears, and he tends to fight the same guys over and over and over again.
Well, that's because Korn resurrects both sides each time.
Right. So
it depends on whether or not the person's
favored by one of the chaotic gods.
Resurrect it.
Favored by one of the chaotic gods. Yeah, I think that has to do with a huge factor of it. But then again, at the same time, Gazgul anyways is sitting atop anyways a huge amount of Wog energy.
Right.
Something that comes from the Immaterium, and it's Gork and Mork. And we already kind of discussed anyways, what the power of Gork and Mork are.
Taking more and more interest in things, which is scary in itself.
Yeah. But Gork and Mork anyways, in the Immaterium anyways, I mean, the Chaos gods have tried to fight Gork and Mork. And what ends up happening anyways is they hit them as hard as they can. Gork and Mork laugh about it anyways and just keep on fighting.
Or bash their head and then keep fighting.
Yeah. Sends them a blow anyways. They go, okay, we're not doing that anymore. They go back home. So Wog energy, and this is the thing that I always found interesting, is that Wog energy is so different from any other kind of like warp entity or warp energy. So I think maybe even Gazgul could actually kill a demon prince. That's what I'm saying.
Possibly.
He's got the possibility to do it. He would have to do it because as we know anyways, he's known as the Great Green Prophet.
Right.
So I could see him anyways having that Wog energy and being able to kill Angron. I could also see him anyways just being simply pissed off enough anyways that he uses one of the cannons on his arm anyways and just blasts him into oblivion, and Angron ends up back in the Immaterium, and Gazgul's like, well, I won, and then he moves on anyways to the Imperium.
Right.
I could see both happening. But
I see him more likely to crush him with his claws instead of shooting him.
Well, he's got one claw and he's got a big hammer gun on the other hand. But anyways, regardless, I thought we weren't talking about Gazgul.
You're the one who brought it up.
Fair enough. Well, folks, that is all the time we have for today. And while we have had fun, next week, we must move on to a favorite of the Imperium, the Ultramarines.
Oh, yes, the blue beaky boys. They be good enemies.
Yeah, sure. Say, Yuksen, you mind grabbing some gas so these boys can go ahead and test out their new buggy? Yeah?
I thought you may ask. Sure, here you guys go.
Oi, yeah, you be a good blue guy. You was alright with us. Alright, Snikrot, we be off. Yeah!
Yes, next month we will be discussing the Ultramarines, aka the Smurfs.
Wait, brother.
And for those listening, if you liked our Vox, please follow, subscribe, like, and comment.
Yes, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or send them to our website at www.ashraka.com. That's www.asharaka.com.
Indeed. And as always, until next time, this is Zeckthar.
And Yuksen, signing off.
I told you it would work.
Shut up and go!
Honestly, Zeckthar, why are we keeping them?
Okay.
I take me foot off.
They're lucky?